Right now on the National Weather Desk, recovering from Ian, where the efforts stand this morning and what could be lurking next in the Atlantic. You'll meet the group that's trying to replace storm-damaged trees one sapling at a time. And a group of whales and orcas was caught battling in the waters off the Northwest. We'll show you the stunning video. And we'll break down how different types of lightning and how they form.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Veronica Johnson. We start this morning and every morning with the day's big weather stories. And once again, today, that's the latest on the cleanup with Hurricane Ian. Deaths blamed on the storm, now top 100, but many people are still listed as missing. Governor Ron DeSantis says more than 1,900 people have been rescued. The website Power Outage reports nearly 40,000 customers are still without power. The National Guard is flying power crews into Sanibel and Pine Islands to start working on restoring power there. But even so, Sanibel Island's fire chief says parts of the island are not livable with gators and snakes all over the place. We're also keeping a close eye on the tropics this morning, where two potential systems are developing. The one that you're seeing there in yellow, just north of South America, has currently a 20% chance of forming over the next 2 days. But the one in red near the Cape Verde Islands has a much better chance and certainly bears watching. By the way, the next named storms in the Atlantic will be Julia, Carl, and Lisa. Well, we now have two reports on cleanup efforts in both Florida and South Carolina. In a moment, a look at the importance of rebuilding the Myrtle Beach sand dunes that Hurricane Ian destroyed. But first, we want to head to West Palm Beach, where Lena Salzbank introduces us to the volunteers helping in the recovery efforts there.
Days after Ian tore across Florida with powerful winds and devastating storm surges, volunteers packed their cars and headed straight to the disaster site.
Yes, we have a full trunk full of medical equipment, rescue gear, and some things that may be helpful to local community members.
The devastation of the hurricane first coming into focus for first responders after crossing over the bridge on San Carlos Boulevard.
I mean, wow, that's my reaction. You don't expect anything like this to happen, and once you see it in person, it's really something else, you know?
Is anybody in here?
Search and rescue, the #1 task, as thousands remain unaccounted for after neighborhoods were reduced to rubble. And while a lot of people have left Fort Myers, we're seeing a ton of people walking miles up and down this street just trying to find food and water and a way out of this area.
What is put in place to protect us now needs repair due to Hurricane Ian's impacts. Paul Gaze with the Marine Science Department at Coastal Carolina University says sand dunes are a critical part of ensuring that the ocean doesn't flood roads and homes. He says now that these dunes are damaged, low-lying areas are more vulnerable.
If you start seeing storms more frequent, or we're not as able to maintain the renourishment intervals, then you start seeing increased levels of vulnerability. You certainly see that along the coast in some areas that are chronically higher erosion rate.
Well, as the world experiences more weather disasters, trees are being hit and hit hard. As Emily Gracie explains, one organization is replanting those trees and breathing new life into communities that really have lost everything.
In the wake of natural disaster, there's often one common victim.
Every disaster destroys the trees in every community, whether it's a wildfire, a hurricane, a tornado, a flood. Trees are essential to human life. Their psychological, environmental, economic impact cannot be overstated.
Disaster relief isn't complete until the trees are replanted.
And when a disaster comes through and wipes all of that out, all of those benefits cease being provided. We're talking about reduction in urban heat island effect, stormwater mitigation, carbon sequestration.
That's where Grady McCann and his team come in.
We'll plant hundreds of trees in a matter of hours and really changing the landscape of a community.
The seed was planted with a Texas wildfire in 2011.
I just thought this would be a really cool idea to go into an area where the forest had burned and 1,600 plus homes had been destroyed and people were in the recovery process, and just replant trees. And we planted 220 trees in a couple days, And an organization was born out of that.
From there, Retreat began to sprout.
We're all about planting the right tree in the right place, the right way, at the right time.
All of the work done by a team of volunteers.
It can be anything from college students to employees of local companies or even regional or national companies, and then just folks who regularly volunteer in their community for other events.
Digging, planting, and healing.
And the psychological impact of replanting the trees following a disaster, there's new life, there's hope, it's a rebirth.
Putting down roots for years to come.
We're thinking about how this is going to look 50 years from now, when future generations are going to experience of this community because of the work that we did here today.
For the National Weather Desk, I'm meteorologist Emily Gracie.
What a great way to help. Retreat is a program of Keep America Beautiful. To find out about upcoming projects, visit their website at retreat.org. Well, falling into a fall here with such a beautiful foliage across the area in many places, that means, as the name indicates, flaming fall foliage. Those leaves will eventually be on the ground, and once again, the gorgeous to behold can become a danger when you're driving. Let's go to Syracuse, New York, where meteorologist Violet Skybor has useful information to help you navigate those leaf-covered roads.
And let's talk about driving distances for when you're trying to stop on a dry road versus a wet road, and a road that's wet with leaves on it makes a huge difference. Let's say you're going 40 miles per hour and trying to stop. It takes about 80 feet to stop on a dry road, 160 feet to stop on a wet road, but up to 250 feet to stop on a road with wet leaves. So make sure you allow yourself that extra distance. It's almost 3 times as much as a dry road. So be careful this fall when you are driving.
Okay, stop what you're doing. Take a look at this. Quite a sight caught on tape in the Northwest. This video shows a large pod of Biggs orcas, also known as transient orcas, and a pair of humpback whales harassing each other. According to the Pacific Whale Watch Association, this happened last week near the border between Washington and Canada. There were as many as 15 orcas there with 2 humpback whales. Both whale types are common in those waters. It is really unusual to see them fight like this. According to the observers, the encounter lasted 3 hours. The whales then disappeared into the fog, with the final outcome really a mystery. Wow. Let's do some research on that one. Well, we continue to track the beauty of fall colors across the nation. This morning, we're looking at the mountains of northern Utah. Meteorologist Lindsay Storrs takes us on a drive through Cascade Springs near Salt Lake City. Wow. Well, here at the National Weather Desk, we have a team of more than 200 meteorologists keeping an eye on the sky. One of them is Alan Seals, who spent the year sky watching above our station in Mobile, Alabama, along with keeping folks up to date with the weather there. He says that you can tell there's very light winds near the ground and above the station because the cumulus clouds that you see there, well, they are morphing and not moving. Kind of looks like they're jogging in place to me. That is so cool. We have cameras all over the country at our different stations. Take a look at what one captured near Eugene, Oregon. This is a time lapse of a sunrise high over the mountains. As you can see, there's fog at higher elevations. Beautiful sight, but keep in mind that heading into the mountains, fog can come on very suddenly and pose a risk just like that. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, while much of the focus has been on Ian, the northwest of the country has been sweltering. We'll explain how the heat is impacting shellfish farmers. That's all coming up next, right after this.
Hi, everyone. I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with a look at the Northeast. We have a seasonably cool day on tap in the Northeast. A lot of 50s and 60s will be common. Normal highs are a few degrees warmer than that. And the reason, there will be some clouds and there'll be some showers. Best chance for wet weather will be in New York, parts of southern New England. We're brighter for parts of northern New England as we go through our Tuesday. Now, as we go into Wednesday, kind of more of the same. The leftover moisture from Ian is still lingering through parts of southern New England. The rule on Wednesday, skies will be brightest to the north.
I'm meteorologist Jonathan Myers, and here's a look at the mid-Atlantic region, up and down the 95 corridor, all the way from Pennsylvania to New Jersey, down to Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, and the Carolinas. Wet and messy, occasional rain and drizzle, really kind of the same weather maker pushing moisture in off of the Atlantic. This storm system, very pesky, very stubborn, keeping temperatures in the 50s, even still some coastal flooding up and down the Atlantic shoreline during the day. That's the scene here.
I'm meteorologist Vitas Reed. Here's a look at your southeast highs for today. We're seeing Nashville 77, 65 in Raleigh after a cool start in the upper 40s this morning. It looks like we're seeing Tupelo 82, 84 in Mobile. Warmer temperatures back to the Mississippi Delta, but still looking at comfortable mild temperatures. 79 Macon, Jacksonville 75. Down in central Florida, looking at mid 80s with plenty of sunshine. A little bit of moisture starts to work its way in for portions of the middle of the week and towards the weekend for a few pop-up showers in Florida.
Now, let's check to see the weather in cities across the country today. We start in the cold spot on the East Coast. That's here in Washington, D.C., where it's going to be colder than up in Maine. We're expecting a rainy day and an afternoon temperature just around 50 to 55 degrees. Not much better, though, in Rhode Island. As we take a look at the Washington Bridge over the Seekonk River, the Ocean State will see rain today and a high temperature of 56 degrees. And then we'll head over to the Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri. Beautiful there. Look at that great sky, mostly sunny conditions, a high temperature of 78. And our final stop, we'll go down to Texas. San Antonio here. It's going to be a hot day. Some sunshine coming later today, getting up to around 90 degrees. And recently, you've heard a lot about storm surge and wind, but lightning is still a major threat. As we discussed during this time of the year, we can see an increase in lightning and its severity. And did you know that there are different types of lightning? To explain how different lightning forms is meteorologist John Gum out of Cincinnati.
Lightning is one of the biggest killers across the nation. So just how does lightning form? Well, it all starts with positive and negative charges. Positive charges on the ground, negative charges up at cloud level. Of course, these two attract. So what you start to get is what we call a stepped leader that begins to come down from the cloud. Those negative charges, those electrons start to line up. Of course, they're attracted to the positive charges there. Eventually, what happens is the leader nears the ground, and those positive charges on the ground start to flow upward. As these two come together, they merge, and a powerful electric current flows in between them. And what we see is the return stroke. And I'll tell you, this thing travels at about 60,000 miles per second. That's your lightning bolt. And this process may repeat over and over, and that's how we get that flash of lightning on and off. This whole thing only takes about a second. Now, there are different types of lightning as well. Of course, the one we're most familiar with is the cloud to ground, and that is a common one that we tend to see. But we also have intra-cloud, lightning that occurs within the cloud itself. That's pretty common as well. as we get to some of these more rare forms of lightning, cloud to sky, that does happen, more occasional, not something we see all the time. Uncommon would be lightning that goes from one cloud to another cloud. Yes, it happens, but just not very often. The positive stroke of cloud to ground is uncommon, where positive electrons flow downward. Those tend to be some of our powerful lightning strokes that tend to cause the most damage. Thankfully, they're more uncommon. And what is really rare is the ground to cloud lightning. Yes, it happens, but it's definitely not one that we see too often.
Well, for the second consecutive year, the Pacific Northwest has experienced an intense heat wave. Last year, it had devastating effects on the seafood industry. Reporter Paul Rivera is in Seattle to take a look at how the seafood industry, how it's adapting to the weather changes.
I'm Bill Dewey, Director of Public Affairs for Taylor Shellfish Farms. This is our Samish Bay Shellfish Farm. All of our crops take multiple years to grow, and the heat wave wasn't selective. You know, it killed everything.
For shellfish farmers like Bill Dewey, who talked about what happened to farmers last year, it's a constant battle of adaptation to make sure their industry survives. He says it's not just dealing with hotter temperatures, but also ocean acidification.
Caused by the same pollutant, carbon dioxide pollutants that cause climate change, but it's affecting the ocean chemistry and making it hard for our animals to produce their shells.
Dewey said they've put in water monitoring systems and are looking into natural solutions. But as for addressing the temperature problems,
you know, there's not a lot we can do. More and more we are developing culture systems that are mobile, that we could potentially move out of harm's way.
The success or failure of these solutions to issues that won't go away means that a lot of jobs and dollars will be affected in our state.
Supports roughly just under 3,000 jobs, direct or induced jobs, and generates about $180 million in annual economic activity. I try to remain optimistic that, you know, we're going to find ways to continue to farm. We've worked through a lot of adversities over those decades, and we're ready to take this one on as well.
Adaptation, huge. Well, as the weather cools down and people turn to indoor gardening, we want to take a look at a beautiful way to add some green to your home. Meteorologist Brian Vandergraff is in Washington, D.C., finding out what common mistakes people often make at home.
I would probably say overwatering. That's a really tough thing for plant parents to kind of come back from, because it makes the roots rot. Once the base is dead, it's really hard for a plant to come back. But if you do decide to underwater instead, usually if you water it, it'll perk back up.
I like that. So less is more is what you're telling me here. So let's put together a little something fun right here. This is a terrarium, right? Is that what we call it?
It's a succulent arrangement.
Oh, a succulent arrangement. I'm sorry. Oops.
That's the lingo.
Okay.
But yeah, we're going to kind of place this in this little hole that we made.
Okay.
And have it
They have
join.
to have similar, I guess, needs, right?
Exactly. That's a perfect question. Yes. So they want all the same light and the same watering. Since they're all going to live together, that's really important to make sure that they all require the same amount of care. And then everything else is sort of decorative, so you can have some fun with it. Kind of
Little
put some
rock here. Exactly. What's this green stuff here? It's like a mossy something.
Yeah,
Is it?
it's preserved moss, and that
Okay.
also adds a little texture to
Little flair.
Exactly.
I like these little animals over here. I said it was anteater. I was thinking platypus. I don't know.
It's definitely an anteater.
Right. I love it. Get your first starter plant, and bring some fresh air, bring some oxygen into your home.
And we're going to need it this winter. Well, although hurricane season runs through the end of November, everyone has heard this saying, April showers bring May flowers. But that's not the only time of the year where heavy rain and lightning can be expected. Meteorologist Donnie Cox is in New Bern, North Carolina with more.
Summertime is past, and now we start to look ahead to the fall, but still, even with the lightning out there, all of the storms that are out there, we see that into the fall season as well. In the spring, well, that actually starts to come because of the cooler weather that's overriding the warm air trying to come in. Then it's the reverse in the winter time or the fall. That's when we start to see those cold fronts dropping into our already summer atmosphere around here, and you get great lightning shows and sometimes severe weather. But this graphic will show you that we have a primary season that runs in the springtime of the year. That is really where we see most of our activity in March, April, and May. But the secondary season, or severe weather season, that actually starts in the fall, usually sometime toward the end of September, runs through November. So do keep in mind, as we go through the next couple of months, we're still in a severe weather season.
There have been a few interesting celestial events recently that, when captured properly, can be pretty amazing. This is a great photo of a solar plasma ejecting from the surface of the sun. The cloud eruption you can see there bust outward nearly 100,000 miles. And this shot here of Jupiter is actually two shots merged into one. It was taken of Jupiter, and the other one was taken as an overexposed image of Jupiter's four moons. But first, a look back on this day in weather history here. October 14th, 1987. A storm that brought record snow to the northeast. Snowfall ranged up to 21 inches. Wow. And we're going to be right back after this short break.
Well, a very good Tuesday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael taking a look at your weather story across the Midwest. A weak disturbance giving some spotty rain out across the plains today, but a lot of sunshine across the Ohio Valley. As far as high temperatures go, we are going to be dealing with temperatures somewhat close to normal for a lot of us. A little warmer down to the south there with some mid-80s in Kansas and Kansas City. A few more showers in Minnesota and Iowa tomorrow as we continue on into your Thursday. That shifts a little bit more to the Great Lakes.
Good Tuesday morning. I'm meteorologist Joe DiCarlo with look to forecasts across the region today. Starting off on the cool side, 50s across Oklahoma and Arkansas. Most of Texas starting off in the 60s. As we head throughout today, partly sunny, another great day. Temperatures mainly in the 80s, mid-70s off towards Amarillo and out towards El Paso. A little bit more cloud cover, a slight chance of a shower across the western area of our region. Otherwise, we're quiet overnight. Temperatures mainly dropping into the 50s and 60s.
Hi, everybody, and good Tuesday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell. Still a very dry start to the autumn season here out west, particularly in the Pacific Northwest. Had record highs again in many spots on Monday. Tuesday will cool down a little bit, but it's still quite smoky and hazy and unusually warm from Seattle to Boise. Las Vegas at 94 today. We've got a little bit of cooler air sitting over the Rockies. Denver and back toward Yellowstone seeing some passing showers this afternoon. And that's the scene from here.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
Basking in autumn's beauty all season long and this October present from Maine. Here's another vibrant gift from the Pine Tree State, multiple falls in one place, fall leaves decorating the waterfall. Meanwhile, near Rochester, New York, a recent coating of morning frost shows up to greet the grass and windshields.
For more content like this, follow the National Weather Desk on Instagram.
Now it's time to spotlight some of the awesome content that we get from you, our viewers, like this dazzling sunset along the Hudson River in Pleasantdale, New York. Wow. And this view along the Blue Ridge Parkway in North Carolina, where there are so many picturesque locations. If you haven't been, this photo was captured at the Water Rock Knob Overlook. And this curious cat is staying up to date with the latest weather moving through Abilene, Texas. Yeah, smart cat. We'd love to share your weather content on the air. You can find us on your favorite social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Just search at NatWX Desk or National Weather Desk, and we'll be right back after this short break. Tomorrow on the National Weather Desk, meet the meteorologist who grows record-setting pumpkins, including this one that weighs over a ton. Hey, thanks for joining us. I'm meteorologist Veronica Johnson. Make it a great Tuesday, and you know what to do. Keep an eye on the sky.